ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Okay, so we'll continue with our prayer for this week. Like we said yesterday, we are glorifying all the 5 guardians of the Dham, Vrajadham, who gave us pure devotional service, starting with Giriraj Govardhan, then Guru Parampara, Vrinda Maharani, Tulsi Devi, and this week it's Yamuna Maharani. So this prayer by Sharupa Goswami glorifies Shri Yamuna Devi. I'll sing again today. Shri Yamunashtakam. भ्रातुरन्तकस्य पत्तने विभक्तिहारिणि प्रेक्षयाति पापिनोऽपि पापसिन्धुतारिणि नीरमाधुरीभिरप्यशेषचित्तबन्धिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि भारि वारि धारयाभिमण्डितोरुखाण्डव पुण्डरीकमण्डलोद्यखण्डजालिताण्डव स्नानकामपामरोग्रपापसम्पदन्दिनी मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनी शीकराभिमृष्टजन्तु दुर्विपाकमर्दिनि नन्दनन्दनान्तरङ्गभक्तिपूरवर्धिनि तीरसङ्गमाभिलाषि मङ्गलानुबन्धिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि द्वीपचक्रवालजुष्टसप्तसिन्धुभेदिनि श्रीमुकुन्दनिर्मितोरु दिव्यकेलिवेदिनि कान्तिकान्दलीविरन्द्रनीलवृन्दनिन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदार दुबन्धुनन्दिनि माधुरेण मण्डलेन चारुणाभिमण्डिता प्रेमनद्वैष्णवाद्ववर्धनाय पण्डिता ऊर्मिदोर्विलासपद्मनाभपादवन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि रम्यतीररम्भमाणगोकदम्बभूषिता दिव्यगन्धभाकदम्बपुष्पराजिरोषिता नन्दसूनुभक्तसङ्ग सङ्गमाभिनन्दिनी मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि पुल्लपक्षमल्लिकाक्षहंसलक्षकूजिता भक्तिविद्यदेवसिद्धकिन्नरालिपूजिता तीरगन्धवाहगन्धजन्मबन्धरन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि चिद्विलासवारिपूर्वस्वरापिनि कीर्तितापि दुर्मदोरुपापमर्मतापिनि पल्लवेन्द्रनन्दनाङ्गरागभङ्गगन्धिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि दुष्टबुद्धिरष्टकिन्मलोर्चेष्टिता त्वाम् अनेन भानुपुत्रि सर्वदेव वेष्टिता यस्तवीति वर्धयस्व सर्वपापमोचने भक्तिपूरमस्य देवि पुण्डरीकलोचने मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदार विन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। श्री यमुनाष्टकम की जय। रस आचार्य श्री रूप गोस्वामी की जय। जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। Okay, anybody would like to read the translation?
I can do, Prabhu.
Hari Bol. Yes, Mataji.
May Sri Yamuna, who is a daughter of Surya Dev, who saves one from having to enter the city of her brother Yamraj, the sight of whom enables the most sinful persons to cross the ocean of sin, and the sweetness of whose water charms the hearts of everyone, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Surya Dev, who decorates the great Khandava forest with the stream of pleasant waters, who is filled with lotus flowers and dancing birds, and who blinds the terrible sins of they who desire to bathe in her, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Surya Dev, a drop of whose water destroys the sinful reactions of the people, who creates a great flood of confidential, pure devotional service to Lord Nandanandan, and who brings auspiciousness to they who desire to live on her shore, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Surya Dev, who divides the seven oceans and seven continents, who witnessed many of Lord Mukunda's transcendental pastimes, and whose splendor rebukes a host of sapphires, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Surya Dev, who is decorated by the beautiful district of Mathura, who expertly protects they who follow the path of loving devotional service, and who, with the playful motions of the waves that are her arms, offers respectful obeisances to Lord Padmanabha's feet, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Surya Dev, whose charming shores are decorated with many loving cows, who is filled with many splendid and fragrant Kadamba flowers, and who is delighted to have the company of Lord Krishna's devotees, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Surya Dev, who is filled with the warblings of thousands of joyful Mallikaka swans, who is worshipped by the Vaishnavas, Devas, Siddhas, and Kinnaras, and the slightest scent of the fragrant breeze moving on whose shores stops the cycle of repeated birth and death, always purify me. May Sri Yamuna, who is the daughter of Surya Dev, who is the famous, splendid spiritual river flowing through the Bhu, Bhuva, and Swa planets, who burns away the greatest sins, and who is fragrant with scented ointments from Lord Krishna's transcendental body, always purify me. O lotus eyed one, O daughter of Surya Dev, O rescuer from all sins, please flood with pure devotional service that person who, reciting these 8 prayers with a cheerful heart, glorifies you, whose waves are pure and splendid, and who is accompanied by all the demigods. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank you, Shrimataji. Yes, so Yamuna Maharani can flood us with pure devotional service. That's why she's so great. There's once a pastime with Jiva Goswami and Akbar during the Mughal rule, and Akbar had this question: which river is greatest? Greatest, Ganga or Yamuna? And then there was debate going on in his court with all the ministers, and there was no end to the debate. And finally, somebody suggested that we should ask, this the Goswami of Vrindavan. That time, Jiva Goswami was the kind of the predominant acharya. So Akbar asks his ministers to go call him, but he says, "No, I will not come," because he has a he has a policy that he will not get out of Vrindavan, leave Vrindavan and go out. But then he requests, after a lot of requests of Akbar, finally, he comes with the condition that he will be brought back to Vrindavan the same before the evening, before the sunset. So anyway, so he comes, and then he sorts out the mystery as to which river is greatest, and then he gives his reasoning is that yes, Ganga is certainly great because it originates from the lotus feet of the Lord, but Yamuna Maharani is even greater. She is the greatest because she is the eternal consort. Right? So actually, Krishna appears in the liquid form as Yamuna, and Yamuna Maharani is also the wife of Krishna. So she is the eternal consort of Krishna, whereas Ganga Devi, of course, originated from the lotus feet of the Lord. So anyway, so Akbar is pleased, and he tells him, I'm very happy, and please ask me anything that you would like. And then he tells them that my wish is that there should be no hunting. Like as kings and as rulers, you should not hunt in the Vrajadham. So in the whole Vrajadham, then from that time Akbar grants that sanction that there will be no hunting of any animals in Vrindavan. And also he asks for paper, because that time Jiva Goswami, of course, is the foremost scholar of our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara. He was a very learned scholar, and he wrote so many wonderful literatures, but they were using leaves to write those. But then he asked for paper at that time, and paper was only available in very limited quantity. So Akbar gives him the topmost quality of paper to compile literature, scriptures. So yeah, so like that, Yamuna Maharani can flood us with your devotional service. Okay, let's continue. Chapter 51 of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit. Yesterday, Prabhupada is teaching his disciples how to chant and fight. Like there is that joke where that came in the newspaper in America and Europe that time, that there's devotee asking people to chant, and then this is like can't. So like that. So if you remove the H from chant, then you are unhappy. If you add the H for happiness, then you become chant and happy, like Prabhupada used to say lovingly. So chant Hare Krishna and be happy. If you remove the H from chant, then you just can't be happy. So yes, Prabhupada is teaching how to defend, especially all the arguments that are coming from the court cases, from the annoyed parents, or from the, the Christians and Jews who are worried that all these religions from outside the country were converting people. So there are a lot of resentment and a lot of fight in the court, and Prabhupada is giving solid arguments to each one of them. Somebody was saying, well, we are brainwashing. Prabhupada saying, actually, this Adikeshav Swami who comes from New York, he says that, well, actually, if first they have to prove that they have brain, right? Only then we can wash the brain, right? So it's actually not a brainwashing movement. They don't even have brains. That is why they are arguing like this. They can't even see that, and what the difference between a dead body and a living body. Right? Just because they cannot see the soul, they are saying that there is no soul, but they can't even see beyond the four walls. Does that mean that nothing exists beyond the four walls? No. So like that, similarly, they are saying they have brains, but they don't have any brains. So that is why this is not a brainwashing movement, but it's a brain giving movement. So we are actually giving brains. We are teaching people to, giving them the brain to see who they are and what their real identity is. And of course, Krishna himself says at the end here that I am not manifest to the foolish and unintelligent who have no faith. Right? So for those who have no faith in the Lord, even though Krishna himself comes personally, right? Kauravas never recognized him as the Lord. Shishupal never recognized him as the Lord. Right? So there are always the demons whose intelligence is stolen away by Yogamaya, whose intelligence is covered by the curtain of Yogamaya. They cannot see the Lord as he is. Even when he comes in front of them, with their eyes they cannot see. So like that. Okay, so let's continue from here. So later, Srila Prabhupada spoke privately and in more detail with Adikeshava Swami. They told me that you had grown your hair, said Prabhupada. Adikeshava admitted it was so, but that he couldn't do it anymore. He said he wanted to go to the court proudly and say that he was Prabhupada's son and proud of being a devotee. Prabhupada said that was also his desire, that Adikeshav go into the court in sannyas dress and carrying his sannyas danda. He should have tilak and a shaved head, and he should preach. Srila Prabhupada told how people had advised him to wear western dress when he had first come to America. Adikeshav had received recent letters from Prabhupada, but now Prabhupada told him face to face to bring all of the books into the court and introduce them as evidence. He should boldly preach. Adikeshav mentioned that an official in the Indian embassy had said that the Indian government would give him asylum if necessary. Srila Prabhupada was pleased to hear this when Adikeshav admitted that he was sometimes discouraged and alone in the prolonged legal struggle. Prabhupada said he could take other men with him to help. But the main backing Adikeshav required was from Srila Prabhupada. He wanted Prabhupada's mercy, and Prabhupada, like a father, gave solace and courage to his young, rather frail-looking son who was going into battle. Don't be afraid, Prabhupada said. Repeatedly, he would call Adikeshav to his room to give him more mercy, another logical argument, an instruction on how he should act in court. Prabhupada's essential advice, of which Adikeshav was now aware and convinced, was that he should preach. Krishna would protect him. Tamal Krishna replaced Satsvarupa as Prabhupada's secretary. Early in the morning, on Satsvarupa's last day of duty, Srila Prabhupada called him in just after dictating his Srimad Bhagavatam verses and purports and told him that for breakfast he wanted cucumber, soaked moong dal, and fruits. He said he had just dictated some verses and purports dealing with transmigration, and he rewound the tape and played back the dictation. Philosophical arguments of Krishna's father, Vasudeva, trying to convince Kamsa about the eternality of the soul. Vasudeva argued that at death, the soul changes from one body to another, just as a man walking down the street places one foot in front of the other. And Prabhupada, while listening, demonstrated by walking with two fingers across the dictating machine. Prabhupada's dictation continued. At the present moment, there is a great opposition to the Hare Krishna movement, which is being called a brainwashing movement. But actually, the so called scientists, philosophers, and other leaders in the Western countries have no brains at all. The Hare Krishna movement is trying to elevate such foolish persons by enlightening their intelligence so that they will take advantage of the human body. Unfortunately, because of gross ignorance, they regard the Hare Krishna movement as a brainwashing movement. They do not know that without God consciousness, one is forced to continue transmigrating from one body to another. Now, the very same arguments that Prabhupada had spoken to the sannyasis were immortalized in the Bhaktivedanta purports. In the future, after the court case had been finished and mostly forgotten, Prabhupada's true assessment of the situation would prevail. On February 22nd, 350 devotees arrived on a Boeing 747 Air India jet at Dum Dum Airport in Calcutta. The special flight all devotees had flown from Los Angeles to New York to London, picking up more devotees at each stop. As it was the first landing of a 747 in Calcutta, the mayor, local militia, leading Air India dignitaries, and media people were on hand to greet the historic flight. One of the devotees told a reporter that the Boeing 747s coming from the west to Calcutta was the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada. Ten busloads of devotees then rode to Mayapur. Soon the Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir was teeming with transcendental activity. The Gaur Purnima festival was in full swing. The Vaikunta players of New York staged an evening theatre performance of the Ramayana, and Srila Prabhupada attended. The audience watched and appreciated Srila Prabhupada almost as much as they did the play. On the opening night of the Pandal, a government minister attended to officially inaugurate the festivities. He cut a ribbon to open the new building, and he and Srila Prabhupada walked together down the long first floor corridor and viewed a photo display of his concentrators around the world. Halfway down the corridor, Srila Prabhupada stopped, shook his head, and said, "It is all inconceivable." The minister was also amazed at the scale on which Srila Prabhupada was propagating Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Then Srila Prabhupada and his guest went onto the stage. The minister gave an introductory speech, glorifying a well-known impersonalist Swami, referring to him as a divine incarnation. He also slighted the name of Lord Chaitanya by saying that although he didn't know whether Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was an incarnation, he knew he had certainly done good in the world. Srila Prabhupada spoke next, using scriptural evidence to correct the erroneous opinions the minister had given in his talk. Srila Prabhupada spoke in Bengali, and most of his disciples could not understand, but they could appreciate the gist. Later, when Srila Prabhupada was sitting in his room with a few devotees, he began laughing. Smacking his fist into his left palm, he said, "I have smashed him." With Gaur Purnima only about a week away, thousands of Bengali pilgrims were attending the ISKCON center each night. They streamed into the temple room for Kirtan and darshan of Shri Radha Madhav, and then went to see the ISKCON photo exhibit. It was the biggest and best organized Mayapur festival ever. Despite the opposition in America, Lord Chaitanya's movement was flooding the world with the waves of Sankirtan, and this gathering of more than 500 devotees from every continent was a powerful testimony to the good health of the growing Krishna consciousness movement. Rameshwar Swami returned with the latest figures of Prabhupada's book production. In the English language alone, Srila Prabhupada had published 43,450,500 pieces of literature, and the total production of Prabhupada's books in 23 languages, including Russian, was 55,314,000, more than 90% of which had already been distributed. Rameshwar also presented Srila Prabhupada with a new book just off the press, the ninth canto, part 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Radha Vallabh reported that the next printing of Bhagavad Gita as it is would be so large that the paper required to print it would have to be carried on 76 train cars. Prabhupada and the devotees laughed at the astounding figures. Prabhupada thanked the devotees for their hard work. "This is the blessing of my Guru Maharaj," he said. "He wanted it, and because we are trying to do this, he is giving us all blessings." Srila Prabhupada continued to be very active, encouraging devotees, writing, preaching. Soon after the bus loads of devotees arrived, however, he became very ill again. His busy schedule became a strain, but he continued. The GBC men began their annual 3 days of meetings, and each evening they would meet with Prabhupada. He heard their proposals, and after making some corrections, approved them. The final item on the GBC's list of resolution was that all ISKCON temples had 24-hour kirtan. in view of Prabhupada's sickness. The devotees had also done this in 1974 when Prabhupada had been ill. Yes, Prabhupada said when he heard the resolution, chanting is the only cure for all diseases. On Gaur Purnima, Srila Prabhupada accepted more than 200 disciples for the first initiation, and he awarded second initiation to 100 disciples. Huge crowds poured through the front gate all day, and from 4 p.m. until late at night, the roads would be packed, and the kirtanas would attract large receptive audiences. In the afternoon, Srila Prabhupada received Tarun Kanti Ghosh, the Home Minister for Bengal, who also in charge of the state police force. Prabhupada spoke with Mr. Ghosh in his room and found him very favorable toward ISKCON and the Krishna consciousness philosophy. Srila Prabhupada had decided to stay on in Mayapur instead of accompanying the devotees to Vrindavan for the second half of the festival, so some of the leaders came to his room to pay their respects before departing. When Harikesha Swami and Adikesha Swami entered together, Prabhupada told Harikesha that because the people in the communist countries were suffering so much, he should give them books without making them pay. Turning to Adikeshav, he said he had placed much responsibility on Adikeshav's thin shoulders, but that he should be victorious. So you are Harikesh and Adikeshav, he said, the Keshav brothers. So go and preach, be successful. Srila Prabhupada similarly spoke lovingly with other GBC men as they departed for their assigned areas around the world. Within a few days, Mayapur was again quiet, with very few visiting devotees remaining. Almost 2 weeks later, while Srila Prabhupada was still in Mayapur, the news of the New York court decision appeared on the front page of the Times of India. On receiving it, Tamal Krishna Goswami immediately brought a copy to Prabhupada in his room and at Prabhupada's request read it out aloud. Hare Krishna movement is bona fide religion. Washington, March 18th. The Hare Krishna movement was called a bona fide religion yesterday by the New York High Court Justice, who threw out 2 charges against the officials of the movement of illegal imprisonment and attempted extortion. The charge had been preferred by an angry parent that his son, as well as another disciple, had been held by the movement illegally and that they had been brainwashed. The entire and basic issue before the court, said the justice in dismissing the charges, is whether the 2 alleged victims in this case and the defendants will be allowed to practice the religion of their choice, and this must be answered with a resounding affirmative, said Mr. Justice John Leahy. The Hare Krishna movement is a bona fide religion with roots in India that go back thousands of years. It behooved Merrill, Kreshover, and Edward Shapiro to follow the tenets of that faith, and their inalienable right to do so will not be trampled upon. The separation of church and state must be maintained. We must remain a nation of laws, not of man. The presentment and indictment by the grand jury was in direct and blatant violation of the defendant's constitutional rights. The justice said that it appeared to the court the people rest their case on an erroneous minor premise to arrive at a fallacious conclusion. The record is devoid of one specific allegation of a misrepresentation or any act of deception on the part of any defendant. The justice said, the freedom of religion is not to be abridged because it is unconventional in beliefs and practices, or because it is approved or disapproved by the mainstream of society or more conventional religions. Without this proliferation and freedom to follow the dictates of one's own conscience in his search of approach to God, the freedom of religion will be a meaningless right as provided for in the Constitution. In the attempt, it be direct, well-intentioned or not, presents a clear and present danger to this most fundamental basis and eternally needed right of our citizens, freedom of religion. The Hare Krishna movement has been under pressure from various groups, and this judgment is expected to stop some of the harassment in which it has been subjected in recent months. My mission is now successful, said Srila Prabhupada. In 1965, I went there. This is now recognized after 12 years. I was loitering in the street alone, carrying the books. Nobody cared. Swarup Damodar was present and he spoke with Prabhupada about the Bhakti Vedanta Institute and about preaching in Manipur. And other matters came before Prabhupada's attention. But he kept coming back to the news from New York. Our most auspicious sign is this, said Prabhupada. Hare Krishna movement is bona fide religion. Srila Prabhupada's plans were to move to Bombay. Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj said a lot of senior devotees were gathering in Bombay. They had gone there from Vrindavan and were waiting for Prabhupada. I am therefore going, said Prabhupada. In spite of my so much inconveniences, I am going there. You want to stay in Bombay? Asked Tamal Krishna. How long? I don't want to stay anywhere, said Prabhupada. I want to work. I have stayed in big palaces, big cities. I have no other desire but to work. How long do you want to work in Bombay? Asked Tamal Krishna. So long as there is work, said Srila Prabhupada. There is no end of it. Our Bombay should be organized. Work is our life. There is no question of how long as possible. Krishna is giving us good opportunities. Now we should take it seriously. It is not a joke. Hare Krishna movement is bona fide religion. The devotees discussed before Prabhupada the significance of the court decision. They also appreciated the judge and said that he was a senior man in the courts and was considered conservative. Srila Prabhupada said that he should be sent a letter of congratulations. May God bless you for such right judgment. Live a long life to serve God. Honest and sincere people normally appreciate our movement, said Sarup Damodar. Only those who are envious, we don't care about, Prabhupada interjected. We don't care, never care about. I didn't care many times, even my god brothers. Neither do I care just now. I'll go on with my work. Why care? We are doing our duty, that's all, under the highest authoritative order. Have no fear. It is not personal gratification. So arrange for Manipur. We shall go. Hare Krishna. Okay, so now Prabhupada was sick and he was thinking whether he would go to Manipur, but now he's saying we have to work. It doesn't matter. Till the last breath, he fought. And we see that video of Prabhupada, one of the last moment until his passing away, he is dictating. So he completely, with body, mind, and words, he was completely dedicated, fully surrendered Sharanagati to the Lord, that he wanted to use each iota, the last the mitochondria cells that we have of energy, the last cell of his energy, he used until he left this world. So like that, he is again, as Acharya is preaching by his own example. He's walking the talk. Despite his illness, he is wanting to go to Bombay, wanting to go to Manipur. Swarup Damodar Maharaj is also one very exalted Vaishnava. He was a scientist, chemical engineer. We read one of his books, The Scientific Basis of Krishna Consciousness, where he very nicely presents so many arguments scientifically, because he is a scientist by himself. He talks about examples of flowers, how each flower, we look at the pigments of the flower, so many colors, the whole nature, basically. He gives so many examples in that book. It's a small book, but very wonderful book. So he gave a lot of contribution as a scientist. He preached from the perspective of science, preached the spiritual science. So yeah, he's a very wonderful disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He used to travel to many of the cities in Bombay, of course, in other cities in India, and many of our current ISKCON devotees have had very significant influence by Srila Sarup Damodar Goswami Maharaj, including His Grace Amarendra Prabhu. So yeah, and all these examples that we saw today, Prabhupada talking about the Mayapur temple and the exhibits in the Mayapur temple, like all the pictures of all ISKCON temples around the world. So that is also there in the Delhi temple, Shri Radha Parthasarathi temple in Greater Kailash. Yeah, so like that, we see those pictures. For devotees who have never been to America or to other parts of the world, when they see those pictures, it again shows the enormity and what Srila Prabhupada was able to accomplish in just 11, 12 years of his life here. How many temples he opened and centers he inspired to open across the world. 108 temples while he was on this planet. It's just incredible. That day I was listening to one play or video by Sri Sampradaya. They were talking about Prabhupada's glories. That they are preaching in India, to our own Vaishnavites, and so many people don't want to even hear or listen to anything. And here is Srila Prabhupada, who went out of his comfort zone from Vrindavan. He didn't even have to go, but he left Vrindavan, the comforts of Vrindavan, and he traveled. And today, like we were talking about Russia, Prabhupada is saying, distribute these books to Russians without even asking for money, because that's how much he loved people in Russia. And so for this Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya Acharya, he was talking about the glories of Srila Prabhupada, and he was saying how so many Russians, today, he was so proud, he was feeling so joyful, like tears are coming from his eyes. He was saying, like, so many Russians, they have left the comforts of their country. They come small young, children, they are practicing Krishna consciousness so purely, so dedicatedly. and he was glorifying Srila Prabhupada for, all of that, inspiring so many, devotees all around the world who come to the dhams in India today and who have kind of given up their own comforts of their own countries, and they come and live in, hardships and trouble in foreign countries, in foreign land like India, where there is not much, um, facilities for them, but still, it's how sincerely they're practicing bhakti. So all of that credit goes to Srila Prabhupada. So like that, there are so many wonderful stories. And yeah, what Prabhupada did and inspired, I think that will not be matched in the future. That's why he has a very special place as the founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Okay, any other thoughts, comments, reflections on today's reading? Hare Krishna. Anything that touched your hearts on today's reading? See, who all do we have today? Yes. Meenu Mataji, Shriya Mataji, anything you'd like to share?
Yes, Prabhu. So we read that something where Prabhupada said that, because it's like a communist country, people should give books for free, So that really touched my heart too, that sometimes, I'm like, I've read about this before too, and um, sometimes people are hesitant to just buy books before because they have to pay for that. They're like, oh, why not give for free? I mean, those who understand, they pay, but sometimes even I feel that okay, we should distribute it for free to people who can't afford, or sometimes they're on the fence, if I should get it or not. But like, if they receive it, and they are going to read it, then we should try to distribute it for free too sometimes. That way at least they get to read it. So yeah, and he had a compassionate heart, that because of the circumstances in that country, um that's why he chose to give it for free. So yeah, that was nice too.
Yeah, according to time, place, and circumstances, like Prabhupada always say, right? So, yeah, of course, Vishwanath Prabhu is here. He does so much of book distribution. He can share his insights. But yeah, like even Prabhupada disciples, they would do that, right? Even when they were in the Kumbh Mela, they were distributing Hindi copies of Prabhupada's books. And for even if they were giving 1 rupee, they were giving those small books, to. And sometimes, like we said, sometimes they would, when they were even in America, they would uh, kind of combine the books together, and then they will distribute, the small books and the large books for somebody who's giving big donation, and then for so much of big donations, they'll give away 1 book for free to somebody who's really eager, who's inquisitive, so like that. So yeah, there are different techniques to do that. But yeah, we can see the sincerity of somebody when we come in contact, and you can see somebody's really sincere, eager. And if they mostly people have money nowadays, it's not like people don't have money. But again, it's a donation. That's why we ask for donation. We don't even prescribe it. It's so much dollar. I mean, to cover the cost of the books, we say this is this much. But yeah, we just ask for donation. Yeah. Thank you, Shriya Mataji. Okay, anything else? Vishwanath Prabhu, you want to say anything about book distribution? Okay. All right, he may be busy with few other services. Anybody else would like to say anything? Sangeeta Mataji? I thought he came off mute. Okay. All right, if nothing else, then we'll pause here for today. Thank you all for giving your kind association to Srila Prabhupada through Prabhupada Lilamrit. वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंतकोटि वैष्णवृंद की जय। जगद्गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे। हरि हरि
हरि
बोल।
हरि हरि बोल।
बड़ी हरे
Hare
कृष्णा।
Krishna, everyone.
हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.